So in the last session, we have discussed about Selenium wait commands. So we have been discussing on Selenium, like how to locate the elements till now. And we have also seen like what are all the methods which are useful for us, or the commands which are useful for us while writing the automation scripts. As part of that, we have covered Selenium wait commands in the last session, right? So now from this session, we'll start how to interact with the elements. So as we discussed, automation involves mainly two steps. The first step is locating or finding the web elements on the web page. And the second step is how do we interact with the elements or performing the actions on the web elements on the web page once we locate the elements. So these are the two main crucial steps when you are automating, not only with Selenium, with any tool, right? So locating the elements, web elements on the web page, and second step is performing an action on the web element which is located, right? So two main steps. So first part we have been learning till now, right? Till the last session, and what are all the utilities which we can use while writing the automation script we have discussed till now. So from this session we will discuss how to interact with the different web elements on the web page. So we do have different web elements like checkboxes, radio boxes, input fields, drop down, web table, lot of the web elements, right? So iframes, all this we'll discuss now from this session. Okay, so let's start with checkboxes. So how do we automate the checkboxes? So checkboxes we have seen at a high level, like we can actually select checkboxes. We can select more than one option at a time, right? And we can actually know the status of a checkbox if it is selected or not using a method called isSelected. There's a method called driver method called isSelected, which we can use to find the status of the checkbox if it is selected or not. So directly let's jump onto an example and understand what a checkbox is and how do we automate the checkbox. So here, if you see, so I'll navigate to, so you can see two checkboxes here, right? So I wanted to automate these two checkboxes. Like say, for example, I wanted to select this checkbox one, right? So what's the status of this checkbox one? So it is not selected, right? So I wanted to select it like this. So let's try to automate this now. I'll create a new package for today. We'll call it as day 29. We'll create a new class. Let's name it as checkbox example, checkbox as example. Yeah, the first part which we'll do is we'll instantiate a driver, WebDriver equal to new Chrome driver. And then we'll navigate to a particular URL. So what's the URL? This is the URL, right? All right. Once we navigate, we wanted to maximize the window. Driver.manage.window.maximize, right? All right. Now we wanted to automate the checkbox. So automating is locating the checkbox one first. So I wanted to locate checkbox one first. Okay. We located this and you can see go for selector serve and you can see the relative XPath. So if you see here, it's a div content and within it, it has checkboxes heading and then it's a form ID equal to checkboxes. So you can see within this form, there are two checkboxes and input type equal to checkbox. Each checkbox, you can see it's an input type equal to checkbox, right? Both are input type equal to checkbox. So you can see here, right? When I wanted to select this checkbox, so you can see here, it actually gives you the input of 1 because both are same. Input type equal to checkbox. Attribute is also exactly the same, right? So in that case, what we can do is we can just see if I click on this, right? Input of 1. So if we say input, we have two elements matching, right? So how do we differentiate them is using the index. Input of 1 selects the first checkbox. Input of 2 selects the second checkbox. So this is how we can differentiate the two checkboxes. So let's take the relative X path here. And driver dot find element by dot X path input. So this is my first checkbox, right? So I wanted to find it like if it is selected, what's the status before its selection, right? So I wanted to know that. So for that, let's store this in a web element. Call this as checkbox 1. You can call it as checkbox 1. Okay. And then what we wanted to do, we wanted to click on this checkbox. So before that, let's actually find the status of the checkbox. So checkbox 1 before selection. So before we selecting it, what's the status of the checkbox 1? So isSelected is a method which actually gives us that status. So if it is selected or not, it will give us that status, right? Then after getting that status, we'll click on the element checkbox, right? So after clicking on that, so we wanted to check the status checkbox after selection, right? So let's execute this. So what did we do here? We navigated to a particular URL where we have checkboxes. We automated it, meaning like we just, yeah, you can see we just located this checkbox 1 and we wanted to click on it. That's what we did. And if you go back, right, to the console, you can clearly see checkbox 1 after selection is false. So before selection, it was false, right? It was not selected. That's what it is giving the status as. And checkbox 1 after selection is true. So after clicking on that, it has to be true, right? It is selected. So it is returning true, right? So this is how we can automate a checkbox. So say, for example, I wanted to, select the checkbox 2, right? So if you see checkbox 2 is, okay, let's go back here. So this is the original state, right? So checkbox 2 by default it is selected. So if you click on it, so it will be unselected. So checkbox. So how click works? So if you want to select it, you'll have a single click on it. Even if you want to unselect it, again we'll click on it, right? So both select and unselecting the checkbox, it's a single click, right? So by default, like when we navigate to this URL, this is the status of the checkbox 2. That is, it's already selected. So when you click on it, it will unselect, right? So that we wanted to automate. So how do we automate that? I'll just take a copy of this same. And we know it's an input 2. We have seen that, right? So right click on checkbox 2, inspect. Inspect this element. You can take the help of selector sub. You can see relative X path is input 2, right? So that's what we have given here. I'll just call this as checkbox 2. That's it, right? So now checkbox 2, which is already selected, will be unselected when we click on it, right? So you can clearly see that. See, the status of it has changed. The checkbox 1, it was not selected, so it is selected. Checkbox 2, it was selected, so it was unselected. You can see the status here clearly. So what's the status of checkbox 1? So okay, I think we did not modify this. So I have to read this as checkbox 2, or you can just run it again. Yeah, so you can see checkbox 1, it is the status of this checkbox has been reversed. So that we can see it clearly here, right? So checkbox 1 before selection was not selected, so it was false. After selection, it is true, right? So it is selected, so it isSelected method returns true. So just the reverse of it for checkbox 2. So before selection itself, it was selected. So it was true. After selection means once we click on that checkbox, it is unselected. So isElected method is returning false, right? So this is how you can actually automate the checkboxes. Say, for example, you wanted to check, you wanted to, select all the checkboxes. So all the checkboxes which are all available on the web page. So how do you do that? So in that case, select all checkboxes. So in that case, we can use a common class which can actually identify these checkboxes, right? So say for example, if you see here, selecting these two checkboxes. So what's the common here? Input type equal to checkbox is common for both. If you observe, right? So input type equal to checkbox is common for both. You can take this input type equal to checkbox. See, it is identifying two elements, correct? So we wanted say for example, we wanted to know the number of checkboxes on the web page, right? So you can select a common class. Usually it will be class attribute, which is common for the both the elements, right? But in this case, it is like input type equal to checkbox, which is common for both, right? So which is common for both, we can take it as an XPath. And if you see here, two elements matching it, right? So we can take this and use it in driver.findElements, which actually gives us all the elements which are matching with this XPath, right? So what are these? These are the web elements. These are the list of web elements, right? In this case, checkboxes. What are these? These are list of web elements. See, find elements returns list of web elements. So list of web elements. I have the list of checkboxes now. So in this case, it has two, right? So how do we actually select all these checkboxes at one go? So we can write a enhanced for loop for that. So for all the checkboxes, right? From you read all the checkboxes. What does each list contains? What does this list contain? Each element of this list contains a web element. So for each web element, which we can call it as a checkbox, from the list of checkboxes, what we wanted to do? We wanted to click on the checkbox so that it is selected, right? So what did we do here? We have to take a common class which actually represents all the checkboxes. And for that, as it is more than one element and it is pointing to all the checkboxes, so we wanted to capture all the checkboxes. So we are capturing it in the using the find elements method, which actually returns the list of web elements, right? So from that list of web elements, so for reading each web element, so we are using enhanced for loop to read each web element from the list of web elements, and then on each web element, as it's a checkbox, we wanted to click on it. So that's what we did. Yeah, you can see the same status as before, right? But if you observe, so the status of both the checkbox has been reversed. That is fine. So this is how you can select all the checkboxes, because the status of it was like checkbox 1 was unselected and checkbox 2 was selected by default. So it just got reversed when you are selecting all the checkboxes here, right? So, and also if you wanted to display the count, right? Count of the checkboxes, how many checkboxes we have. So list has a method called size, if you remember. So you can use that method to actually print the size of the list. So in this case, it's number of checkboxes, right? How many checkboxes we have it in total, right? So this is enhanced for loop, which is actually selecting all the checkboxes available, right? So irrespective of, it doesn't know the status of the checkbox. It will just click on each checkbox. So if it is already selected, it will be unselected, as in this case we can see, right? Now, I don't want it like this. So I wanted all the checkbox to be in the selected state. So if it is even unselected, right? So I should not touch that. If it is not selected, I have to select that so that I have to see the checkboxes in the status. So when I check the status of any checkbox here, so it has to be in a selected state, right? So how do we achieve it? So again, we can just modify this enhance it for loop a bit. So we'll write a condition saying that if my checkbox, this checkbox, for how does enhance for loop work? So these are the list of checkboxes, right? So from this, each web element will be read from first checkbox till the last checkbox, right? So here, this will represent the current web element, current checkbox from this list of checkboxes. So dot isSelected is what we will check the condition as. If it is isSelected, then we don't need to select it, right? So you have to write the negation of it. So what do we write the condition here? Checkbox, if it is selected, that is, you can write, if it is selected, if you click on it, right? So what happens? It will be unselected. But we just wanted the exactly reverse of it. So if it is not selected, then click on it. So you can just include the negation case here. So which means that this part actually checks for if it is selected or not, right? So when you actually include this negation, it will select if it is not selected or not, right? If it is not selected, meaning it will be true if it is not selected. That is what we wanted, right? So if it is not selected, then we go and click on it. Say, for example, if it is already selected, right? So what happens to this condition? Checkbox.isSelected is true, say, for example. Then negation of true is false, right? So it will not enter into this condition. So it will not click on it. So if it is already selected. So that's the condition we have written here, right? So now let's execute and see now. Yeah, now you can see both the checkboxes are selected, right? So how did we achieve this? And also you can see the size, number of checkboxes 2, right? So how did we achieve this? We have written a small condition saying that if the checkbox is selected, right? So, and a negation of it, that is, if it is not selected. If it is not selected, then go ahead and click on it, or else just skip it if it is already selected. So that's the logic. So this logic works for n number of checkboxes. You can select it. We have just taken a simple example, but this can be extended to n number of checkboxes, right? So the process will be the same, right? So if you wanted to select all the checkboxes, you can either use this, but the first enhancer for loop. So what it does, it will just click on it irrespective of the status of the checkbox. Yeah, we can unselect as well. Say for example, if it is selected, right? If it is selected, you just remove this negation. So this negation was actually verifying if it is not selected, right? So till this part it is selected, right? So we just added this negation so that it becomes unselected. Only then click on it. Just remove this negation. What happens? Checkbox is selected. So you are checking condition if it is selected. If it is selected, click on it. Is selected in the sense it is already selected. When it is already selected, we wanted to click on it. So that's it. You just remove this condition. That's all. Okay. What I can do is I can include this. Select all checkboxes. That is selected has to be true for all, right? So this we have verified. You wanted to unselect that, right? So you just need to remove this negation. That's all. This actually unselects. Unselect all checkboxes. That is selected has to be false for all. See, this time you can see two checkboxes has been unselected. That's it. Simple logic. If it is selected, then go ahead and click on the checkbox so that it will be unselected, right? Simple one, actually. It's a Boolean, right? So if E is selected, we wanted to click on it and make it unselection. If it is already selected, and if you wanted to, if it is not selected, right? So we just add the negation here. If it is, which becomes, which you can read the condition as not selected, then it will go ahead and click on it so that all the checkboxes becomes selected. So that's it. So this can be extended to a number of checkboxes as well. So you can just practice it with any other demo website where you have the checkboxes, right? So this is all about the checkboxes. Any questions? All right. Now let's understand how you automate the radio button. How to automate the radio button. Again, radio button also, we can use isSelected method. isSelected method will be handy for that as well. So for some checkboxes, right? So the checkboxes will be grayed out. That is, you can't actually modify the status of it. So for that, you can actually use the isEnabled method as well. So you can check the isEnabled method if you wanted to click on a checkbox. So if you wanted to just know if it is disabled or enabled, you can just know the status of this checkbox. If it is enabled, only then you can write a condition saying that if the checkbox is enabled, so you'll enter into that loop and then you'll click on it because you can only click if the checkbox is enabled, right? So is enabled is applicable for like, checkbox and input fields. Of course, radio buttons as well. Now let us understand how do we automate the radio buttons. So if you take this example, here you can see radio button demo, right? So you can see two radio buttons here, male, female, right? So if I go and inspect this, or just click on this before even inspecting. So if I select male, so this is the status, right? So if I click on this female, this will be unselected. So what is the radio button? At a time, you can only select one option. So that's what the radio button is, and that's how we can differentiate a radio button from a checkbox, right? Whereas checkbox, we can select more than one option at a time. Radio button allows you to select only one option at a time, right? So if you select the other one, it will actually, unselect the other one. So if you have two, right? So at a time, you can only select one. So this we wanted to automate. So how do we do that? So let's first navigate to this URL. I'm going to create a new class. We'll call this as radio button example. Just in the interest of time, we can just copy this 3 lines here and we can modify this URL, right? Now we wanted to automate this radio buttons, right? So right click on it, inspect it. So you can see here, it is, this has like both. Okay, you just need to hover on this exact radio button, right? So you can see it's an input type equal to radio, value equal to mail, right? So go ahead with the selector sub and you can see here, mail input name equal to, or you can take this index path as well. So which actually is matching with 1, right? So if you remove this, it will match with 2 elements, input name equal to option radio, right? So if you see here, for male and female, there are 2, right? So this is input type equal to radio, value equal to male, name equal to OPT, option radio, right? So if you see, both have the same attributes. It only differs in one value, that is value, right? So we can even construct our own XPath here. So how do we do that? Let me show you. So we have seen this, and you can say value equal to mail, right? Okay, this has to be closed here, the square brace. So we wanted to have two conditions, right? So if you see name equal to OPT radio, right? So we can't actually, we don't have the different options there. If we would have a different name for each radio button, we would have used the same name. But in this case, we would have used the name to differentiate the two radio buttons. But in our case, name is same for both the radio buttons. So we'll use name as well as value is which it is differentiating to these two radio buttons. So we have included value attribute as well, and we had an and condition. So both these condition has to be matched such element we wanted to locate. So if you even select here, you can see one element matching, it is pointing to male, right? So you'll just modify this to female value so that it will select the female radio button, right? So you can even, what we can do is, say for example, this is male, right? And it is selecting one. So why do we need this name at all, right? It is anyway common for both, right? So let's see what happens. So yeah, it is selecting two, right? So value equal to male is selecting two radio buttons, because if you see, there is another radio button here with the same value, male, group radio button. So it will not know which male you are referring to, right? So this is the reason we are actually differentiating this with another option, name equal to OPT radio. So for this mail, it might be different. The name might be different. See this mail. So the below group radio buttons has a different name for it. So name was gender, right? So just to differentiate between that below radio buttons, group radio buttons, and this radio button demo, we need to include name equal to OPT radio. And within this, to differentiate between male and female, we need this value. So that's the reason we had the AND condition here. So whenever you are writing an XPath, so you might not be getting the exact XPath what you are designed for, right? So in that case, we have to construct it like this. So we have an AND condition, which actually uniquely identifies this element, right? So let's take this element, driver dot find element by dot XPath. Let's capture this. So this is a web element, which is a radio button, right? Or you can just say male radio button. All right. So male radio button. Once we find it, what we wanted to do, we wanted to click on it. Again, click is the same method which we use. So the common thing in checkbox and radio button is click. So in order to select it, we have to do a single click. And we wanted to know if it is selected or not, right? So we can know the status of it. If male radio button is selected, or we can just display it instead of writing it. We can display it on the console also, if it is selected or not, right? Male radio button selected. It will give the status. Right? What did we do here? We just navigated to this URL, maximized the window, and then we found this element, radio button called mail. So in order to uniquely identify that element, we actually constructed a XPath with an AND condition, right? So which actually uniquely identifies this radio button called mail, right? Then we clicked on it, and then we are checking the status of it. Yeah, you can see. So at the beginning, both the radio buttons are not selected, but now mail is selected, and we can see that displayed on the console as well. Mail radio button selected is true, right? So if you want, you can actually have this before also, like before what's the status of it, right? So for now, I'm just not doing that. Instead of that, what we can do is like, we can just see how do we click on the female radio button, right? So for that, we can just have this same code. And we can just modify it a bit, right? So this is a female radio button. So we have seen how do we actually write the XPath for it. You just need to modify it like this. That's it. See, it is actually pointing to this radio button and which is uniquely identified, one element matching here, right? So you can bring this XPath here and you can put it here. And this is a female radio button. We wanted to click on it. And we wanted to check the status of it. So now let's verify it. Yeah, you can see female radio button has been selected, right? Yeah, you can see female radio button selected is true. Right? At a time, if you wanted to know the status of male also, then you can do that. You just need to uncomment this. And you can verify what's the status of male radio button when we select female. Yeah. Now you can see the status of each radio button. Female radio button, we selected it, so it is true. So at that time, we can only select one radio button. So male radio button has been selected. The status of male radio button is false, right? So yeah, this is how you can actually automate the radio buttons. So just remember that you can't actually select more than one radio button, right? So that's the actual functionality of radio button. So you need to be careful when you are locating the elements. So it might actually, point to locate more than one element. So you need to write the XPath, which actually uniquely identifies your radio button which you wanted to interact with, right? So that's the reason you have to include, like, you might be required to have more than one attribute mentioned within your XPath, and you'll be using the AND condition to uniquely identify the elements. Right? And yeah. You can just click on this as well. So it says something, radio button mail is checked, right? So you can even do this, like you can automate this if you want. You just need to get this button. So you can see button ID equal to button check, right? So just click on it. And then you can also identify this text and get the text. So if you want, we can do that as well. So say for example, use all these windows. They have given some functionality, which is like get checked. So select male and then get checked value, or select female and then say get checked value. You get some text, right? So you can even automate that as well if you want, right? So how do we do that? Driver dot, once we select that, find element dot by dot XPath. It's a button, right? Gets the XPath of this button. And we wanted to click on it. Once we click on the button, we get this text. So we get this text. It's a text, right? So find element. It is also an XPath. Dot. That's an element, but we wanted to get, it's a label, right? So we wanted to get the text out of it. So get text method returns string, right? So we can just copy it in the string object, and then you can just display it on the console. It's a display message, right? Which we get it after clicking on the button, right? So we just added this code, as it has some more functionality. It's a get checked value button. So when you click on it, it is giving you some text which we wanted to print on the console. Yeah, I clicked on this get checked value, radio button female is checked. And you can see that message here, right? So this is an extra functionality. Like this, you'll have something else as well. So if you see group radio buttons, right? So you can try automating this. You can take this as an assignment, right? This will be the same. So gender selection, male and female, and it's a age group. So this is another radio button. So if you select in any combination like this, right? And say get values, so you get these values. So you can read this and print it on the console. So you can take this as an assignment and work on it. So this is all about the radio buttons. Any questions? So if you don't have any other questions, then we can actually jump on to the next topic called alerts. So how do you actually handle the alerts? So what is an alert? So let's see an example first. So JavaScript alert box. So when an alert box pops up, user have to click OK button to proceed, right? So a simple alert. How does a simple alert looks like? So when you click on this button, you see a box, right, which is coming from the browser, right? So dynamically. And if you see, this is not, you can't actually locate it on the using the inspect, right? So if I click on here, so I can actually locate the element on the web page for all these web elements which are present on the web page. But alert, you can't do like that. So if you see, if I even try to right click on this, see, I don't get that options. The usual options which you get, I'm not getting here, right? So if I click on this web page, I get this like inspect, and then I can actually inspect any web element, right? We can inspect any web element on this web page. But when you click on, when you get an alert, right? So Selenium like the usual activity how we do, like inspecting the web element, right? So this is not like a usual web element where we can inspect it, right? See, we can't actually do this. We can't actually inspect it using inspect, or you can find it out with selector sub, right? So this is something special, right? So it is a pop-up which is coming dynamically within the web page, and which we can't actually locate it using the inspect, meaning like DevTools or selector sub, right? So in that case, how do we handle it? So we do have a method called alert for that. So there is a class called alert. So using that, we can actually handle the alerts. So there are three types of alerts. There are three types of alerts. So we can say that simple alert, confirm alert, and then prompt alert. These are the three alerts available. So we'll see one by one now. So the first one, right, JavaScript alert box. This is called a simple alert. So when you click on it, you get a pop-up. See, we call this as an alert, right? So it has some text in it. It just says, alter box, right? And it has some button. By default, it has some button. Okay. So you don't have any other choice. Just click other than just clicking on this OK button, right? So it's simple alert. So when you click on this button, you get an alert box where you will have some text. So we can read the text and we can click on this button. That's the only actions we can perform, right? Using the simple alert. So let's see how to automate that. So let me create a new class. We'll call that as handle alerts. I can just copy these 3 lines of code here, and then we'll modify the URL accordingly. All right, now we navigated till here. Now, how do we automate this? So we wanted to click on this button first, right? So for that, let's try to inspect the element. So if you see, it's a, okay, it is actually representing a class button default. Okay, anyway, it is suggested by selector sub, right? So let's take it. Let's copy it and then driver.find element. We wanted to click on this so that we get a pop-up. So first, let's click on the button. I'm clicking on this button. So what does this do? So it has to, it will actually give you an alert. So how do we handle the alert? So simple alert, right? This is simple alert. So simple alert will have only OK button, right? So how do we handle it? Alert is a class. So even before that, let me show you how do we actually handle it. So we'll use switch to method. So do you remember where we use switch to method earlier? So we use switch to method when we wanted to switch to a, yeah, where do we use? Where did we use this switch to method? Correct. So window handle, right? So when we wanted to switch the context to a different window, when we have multiple browser windows open, we can use switch to method, right? So again, that is back, right? Switch to dot. So we can say alert. Alert is a method. So at a time, you'll have only one alert in the web page, right? So switch to dot alert. It will know it has to actually point to that alert, right? It has to switch the context to that alert. So this is how you can actually switch the context to the alert. And if you see, this alert method is returning an alert object, right? So let's capture that into an alert object. I'll call this as simple alert. You need to import this alert from org.openqa.selenium. All right. Now, once you do that, what operations we can perform? So we can perform 2 operations here, right? So alert dot get text, or what is alert here actually? Driver dot switch to dot, right? So we can actually replace that with this. Switch to dot get text is one, and also alert dot accept is another method which actually accepts the alert, right? So these are the 2 methods. So after switching the context to alert, so when you actually use a get text method, it actually reads the text on that alert, right? So this text, we can get it using the get text method. And when you wanted to click on this OK button, right? So we have a method called accept. So that we'll use it for the simple alert. So now let's do that. I wanted to get the text off from the alert. So from the simple alert dot get text. And I wanted to accept that alert. Simple alert dot accept. That's it. Yeah, it was very fast. So you can't actually see that alert pop up and then accept it. So driver interacting with it, right? So what we can do is once we switch to the alert, right? So once we get the alert after click, so we can add a sleep time here. So this is not required, just for our understanding. So we wanted to see that the alert has been displayed, right? So I'm having some sleep time here so that we can actually view the alert. displayed on the web page after clicking on the button, right? So if you see on clicking the button, you see an alert box clearly, right? Now see on clicking accept method, so it's gone. So, but you can see this get text method is actually reading the text from that alert box, right? So this is about the simple alert. So simple alert has OK button, which you can actually click on it by using the accept method. So this is about the simple alert. You can, this simple alert, what it is pointing to, the driver.switchTo.alert, right? So you can even replace this with like this. Say for example, so even this will work. This alert method is returning an alert object. So we have captured that into a reference variable and we are using that. But that's not mandatory. You can directly use that without having the reference variable as well. See, we have the same output, right? All right. So this is all about the simple alert, right? So now let's see the second alert type. So that is confirm alert. So what is confirm alert? Let's go back to the same example. So you can see JavaScript confirm box. What it does, when a confirm box pops up, user can click OK or cancel to proceed. Box returns true if the user clicks OK and box returns false if user clicks cancel. Click the button to reach blank confirm box. So let's click on this click me. See, it also gives you an alert which says press a button. You can either press OK or cancel. So click on OK or you can click on cancel. So it is actually giving you some text as well. Here you can see it just says press OK. It says press cancel, right? So let's actually automate this. So for this, we need this button, right? So we need to locate this click me button. This also click me. So click me. It has a different text path, I guess. So to differentiate it, it has a different class. Anyway, we can just copy this relay to XPath as is, whatever characters of this suggesting. And let's go back here. I'll call this as confirm alert with OK and cancel button. Right? This is a confirm alert. So how do we handle it? First, we wanted to click on the button, right? So let's click on that button, click me button, by.xpath, and this was the xpath, and we have to click on that button. It's a button, we have to click on it. So after clicking on it, we will get the alert, right? So in order to handle the alert, first thing what we need to do is we have to switch to that alert. So we switch to the alert. So alert method returns an alert object. So we'll capture that in an alert reference variable. So I'll call this time I'll call my alert as confirm alert. Right? So once I get the confirm alert, I wanted to print the text on it. So we can say confirm alert dot get text. And then we wanted to accept that. Say for example, we wanted to click on OK, right? So for clicking on OK, confirm alert dot accept. So this click on OK. So how do we confirm that? If it is clicking on OK. So this was giving some text, right? So if you click on this OK, it was giving some text to you. So you can hover on this confirm demo, right? So you can just go back, get the text from this label. Get text. It's a string, right? So you can just say result. What's your result? On what you clicked. So it was displaying some message, right? So you can just print that here. I think there is some problem with my mouse. Right? Result. So what did we do? For confirm alert, we will have OK and cancel button. So for that, what we wanted to do is, so one second. Okay, OK and cancel buttons we have for the confirm alert. So what did we do? For that, first we wanted to click on the button, and then we wanted to switch to that alert, consent alert, and then we are extracting the text on that alert, confirm alert, and then we are clicking on the OK button. And just to confirm that there was some functionality given in that URL, right? So which actually gives you some label saying that which button you have clicked on, right? So that we are displaying on the console. That's all. So if you can run this, so it is like almost the same as the simple alert, right? Only thing changed here is you have two buttons here. One alert works. Okay, why it is okay, got it. So we didn't comment this, the first part. No, we did. Okay, we didn't comment this. From here, we have to actually start. So it starts from here, right? So we have to comment from here till here. Now this is a confirm alert, right? All right. We can just run it now again. And it will be very fast. So after clicking on this button, let's actually add some sleep statement, which will wait for some 3 seconds. This is not required. We are just adding it for our understanding. We wanted to see that in action, right? We wanted to see this alert. See, it has to stay for some 2-3 seconds so that we'll see what's happening, right? So it actually opened a confirm alert. So press a button was displayed on the alert. So we got the text on that using the get text method, and we got some label. You pressed OK, right? So we were reading that message. All right. Now what we can do, we can actually click on the cancel button. So how do we cancel? We click on the cancel button. So we can just comment that out. Confirm alert dot dismiss. Dismiss is a method which actually clicks on cancel. So this is same. Whenever you have a confirm alert and you have two buttons, whatever could be the label, it could be yes or no in some cases, true or false. So it will always be two buttons in the confirm alert, right? So agree or disagree. All these values are the possible values in the confirm alert, right? So in this case, we have seen OK cancel. But in any case, if you see two buttons with OK cancel, yes, no, agree, disagree. For all that, like the first option, you can choose it as accept. The second one, you can choose it as dismiss. Right? So in this case, OK, we have clicked on it using the accept method. For cancel, we have used dismiss. Right? So we can check it now. We are clicking on cancel button on the confirm alert. So yeah, it stays for 3 seconds. We clicked on cancel. So that we can confirm here also. It says you pressed cancel, right? And you can see it on the console as well. So the only difference between simple alert and confirm alert is in the confirm alert, we have two buttons. So in the simple alert, we have only one button, right? So that's the main difference between simple alert and confirm alert, right? Now, let's comment this and see the last type of alert. That is prompt alert. So here also you can use two methods. Along with this, you will use one more method called dismiss. Then comes prompt alert. So what is prompt alert? Let's see that. So you see JavaScript alert box here. It's a prompt. Click for prompt box. So if you click on that, you will be asked to provide some input into it. Please enter your name, right? So you can just enter your name like this. And when you click on it, it will just say you have entered your name, right? So that's the functionality of prompt box. So if you see, click for prompt box, I'm showing you again. So just click on this box, on this button, you will get an alert. This is not just an alert where you can read the text and click either on OK or cancel, right? Instead of that, you can actually provide the input into the alert box. So sometimes you'll be seeing, right, some alert on the top, which will ask you for the credentials. So you can you can call that as a prompt alert, right? So now you just provide your name, click on OK, right? So you can click on OK or cancel again, right? So it's an extension to the confirm alert. But instead of reading the already pre-existing data, so we can actually provide some input to the alert box. So that's the reason we call it as a prompt box, right? So how do you automate it? First, driver.find element. We wanted to click on it first, right? So by.xpath, we wanted to click on the button. What is this? This is a prompt alert, right? Prompt alert. Prompt alert in the sense it's an input box. Now we need to inspect this button. You can just take the relative XPath of it and click on it. Click on this button, which actually opens a prompt alert. All right. So now we wanted to capture this prompt alert in it. So driver dot, first we need to switch any alert, the same method, switch to dot alert, right? And then we can capture that into a alert object. And this time, so instead of actually getting the text, right? So what we can do, we can actually, or we can even get the text. So what we can do is, let's try to get the text out. Dot get text, and then we'll use prompt alert dot send keys because we have a input box now, right? Enter something here, and then we wanted to click on OK, right? So how do we click on OK? We'll use the method called accept. Right? So what's the difference between confirm alert and prompt alert? Prompt alert, this is the difference. We are trying to provide some value into the input box, right? Yeah, it was very fast again. So we need to, after clicking on the button, right? So in order to see that, you need to add some sleep wait time. Just says please enter your name. Yeah, before when we click on the prompt, right? So that's what the placeholder is, right? So if you see here, if we click on it, so it will say enter, please enter your name, right? Please enter your name is what the text displayed on the alert. So that is what it is displayed, right? And then it will just say when you pass key some input here and click on OK, that's it, right? So it will actually display something here. If you wanted to capture that, you can capture that as well. So if you can go here, yeah, it's a prompt demo. So driver dot find element. You can extract the text from that. This is the validation which that website has given for that, right? So get text. All right. So it's a brown box where we are providing some input to it, right? And then we are clicking on OK button. That's it. See, it waits for 3 seconds, then it enters some name, and then it clicks on OK. And you can see that you have entered Smith, right? So you can see that here. Please enter your name was the text which was present on the alert, and then you have entered Smith. This we are getting it from the label which was displayed on the below the confirm box. So here, right? So this we wanted to extract. That's what we did here, right? So this is how you can actually automate the prompt alert, and this is how you actually handle the alerts in Selenium, right? So any questions? So in some cases, the alerts might be slow. So the alerts might be coming very slow, right? So in such case, how do we handle? We have to add the wait time. And also, like, yeah, we have to so we can add the wait time, but alert itself is coming slow. So in that case, it's like any other web element, right? So we have to use the weights, Selenium weights, which we have learned, right? And yeah, there's an interview question. So for this also, we can have both get text, accept, dismiss. Along with this, we do have something called send keys. It has an input field, so we can use send keys as well and pass some string to it. Now, there could be an interview question where you will be asked to, you have to switch to an alert, but you should not use switch to. So how do you do that? How do you handle alert will be the first question. And when you say driver.switchTo.alert, so they will ask you a question. So saying that switch to should not be used. How to handle alerts not using switch to method. So how do you handle it? So in such case, we can use explicit wait. We can use explicit wait. So let me show you an example. So if we see here, you have something called slow alert here, right? So just click on it. So alert is coming slow, bit slow. If you observe, when you click on slow alert, it takes like half of the second to display. It is not immediately displayed. It is taking some time to display, right? So in such case, we have to wait for the alert to be displayed. And also the interview question was to handle the alerts not using the switch to method, right? So how do we do that? So let's see. I'll create a new class for this. We'll call it as handle alerts, or I'll just say handle slow alerts. I can just copy first 3 lines from this code. Okay, and we'll navigate to this URL. All right, now the first part what we wanted to do is we wanted to click on this link. So let's inspect this element. It's an anchor tag, right? Yeah, it's an anchor tag, and you can use it ID also. So we wanted to click on that link. You can even use the link text as well. I anyway copied the XPath from selector sub. I'll use the XPath. So click on the link, slow alert link, right? So now we are gonna get the alert. So usually what we do, we handle it using the switch to, right? Switch to dot alert. First, let's use this switch to dot alert, right? And then let's say, for example, once the alert is there, right? So I wanted to accept that. So if you see here, slow alert is actually a simple alert with the OK button, right? Which is actually displaying some text slow, right? So you can even, or you can just display the text of it. So we can do that, but let's say, for example, I wanted to accept it, right? So let's execute this code as is now. Now, if you observe, it is not able to click on OK. And also we got a exception saying no alert present exception. No such alert present is what it is saying. But there was an alert. We can clearly see that, right? We were able to see this alert. But why we are getting this error is it was slow. It was a bit slow. So how do we handle it? We can handle it in two ways, right? So we can either add a wait time. So how do we handle the wait time? So once you click on it, so before accepting it, you can add a wait time. So this you can do it just to confirm also. If this is the case with, if the alert is slow, is that the reason? So if you wanted to confirm that, we can add the wait time and check. I'm just, after clicking on that link, right, I'm just waiting for 3 seconds and then we'll try to accept the alert. So this is just to confirm that if the alert is really slow, yes, this time it was able to click on it. So we just need to have some wait time before accepting the alert. So this is how you handle the alerts. But so can we use this instead of this tender slip? Can we use explicit wait? So that's what we are going to do that now. And at the same time, we'll also see how do we actually handle the alerts by not using the switch to. So two things will be covered now. So how do we actually write the explicit wait? So we write the WebDriver, we will create an instance of WebDriver wait, right? So let's create that. New WebDriver wait. We have seen this in the last session. How do we actually have the explicit wait? So first we need to create a new object of WebDriver wait. New object of WebDriver wait. New WebDriver wait driver, and then we have to pass the maximum duration. So what's the maximum duration here? So you can put some 10 here, right? Import this WebDriver wait from this package. And we are going to capture this into a reference variable of WebDriver wait. All right, this is the declaration part for specifying the maximum timeout for explicit wait. But how do we actually write the actual condition? So explicit wait is all about condition, right? Condition and time. My wait dot. So if you remember, until is a method which we'll use, and then expected conditions. So expected conditions dot is alert present, or alert is present is the method which we'll use, right? So this will actually capture the alert box. Right? So how do we handle the explicit wait? So we use the maximum timeout, and to define that, we'll use the WebDriver wait object, and using that object, we can actually use a method called until. Right? So until method, and within that, we have to specify some condition. So this here, I'm specifying the condition as alert is present. Right? Alert is present is my condition. So that we are specifying using alert is present method. So if it is present, right? So this will actually return a alert. Right? It will return an alert object. See, until whatever we pass. So we pass the expected conditions that alert is present. So until method returns alert object. From here, we know how do we handle it, right? It's a slow alert. So that's the reason we are actually using explicit wait. And the other part is, again, like common. If you wanted to extract the text from it, and if you wanted to accept it, everything remains the same. Same methods we can use. As we are capturing this alert in a alert object, same alert methods we can use. Get text, accept, like that, right? So the only thing here is how do you handle the slow alerts? So we can handle the slow alerts using the explicit wait. So how do we write the explicit wait? This is the way we actually define the maximum time using the WebDriver wait object, right? So using that same object, we can actually write a method. We use a method called until, and within that we specify the condition. So that's how we write the explicit wait, right? So now see, let me close the open windows. Now execute it again. See, it was very fast, but you can see it displays slow, right? Get text slow, and we did not get any error, right? So this is how you handle the slow alert. Slow alert is when you click on a link, you might not be getting the alert immediately, instantly. It will take some time to display that alert. So in that case, you'll use explicit wait. So what's the other advantage? It's not an advantage. So this like you can consider that as an interview question. How do you handle alerts without using switch to method? So the answer should be using the explicit wait, right? So explicit wait method actually gives you the flexibility to switch to the alert method. So sorry, alert without using the switch to method, right? So how do you do that? We use the until condition, until method, and within that we can write the condition as alert is present. So this actually will return alert object if the alert is present, right? So what's the use of implicit wait? So if I write the implicit wait at the beginning, so you can try that, right? So if I write an implicit wait, so how do we actually get it? Okay, in order to handle this flow alert, yes, we can use the implicit wait, definitely. Yeah, you can use that as well. Implicit wait also can be used. So I used thread.sleep, right? So this can be replaced with implicit wait as well. Correct. We can do that, right? And yeah, but to answer the interview question, how to handle alerts not using switch to method, you definitely need to use the explicit wait. Got it? Understood? All right. So this is about all handling alerts, right? How do you handle the alerts in Selenium? All right, now let's actually see frames. How do you handle the frames? I'm taking an example. So how do you handle the frames, iframes, right? So frame. So let me show you. Let me give you an overview what frames and iframes are. So say for example, this is your web page, right? So what are frames? So frames are nothing but, say for example, this is divided like this. This web page has been divided into two portions. Say for example, this is some, 30%, 20% of it. This is 80% of it, right? So this we can call it as frame one, this as frame two. So this we can call it as frame one. This we can call it as frame two, right? Say for example, again, this was divided into another part. It is just division, right? So the same web page has been divided into multiple parts, multiple divisions, right? So then we call this as frames, right? So frame or frame set. So how do we handle it is so similar to iframes, but I'll show you what I'll explain you what iframe is also. But this is how you actually the frames are set within the same web page, right? Using HTML, right? So we can actually divide the HTML web page into different portions. So this is frame one, this is frame two, frame three. Each frame will have its own web elements, right? Which will not be accessible from the other frame. So we have to switch to this frame. So the entire web page, so we have to actually switch to the particular frame. And only then you can interact with the elements within that frame, right? So you wanted to interact with some web elements in the frame one. Then you have to switch the context to your frame one, and only then you can interact with these web elements. And if you wanted to interact with some web elements in frame 2, so from here, you can't actually do that. So you have to get out of this frame. So you will use a method called default content, switch to default content for that. So which will come back from this frame, and then you can switch to this frame 2. And then you can perform some operations on this web element within frame 2, right? So whenever you wanted to actually interact with some web elements within a frame, so you can't directly interact with this web elements. You have to switch to this frame. So within the same HTML itself, we'll have different frames. So we have to switch to this frame. How we switch it, we'll see that now. But this is the concept of it. You need to switch to that frame, and then only you can interact with this web elements, right? So how do we do that? So this is all about the frames, right? So in the same way, you can do it for the iframes as well. So I'm not going to show you the frame. It will be the iframe. I will be showing an example on iframes. So that is applicable for the frames as well. Because frames and frame sets are, not supported in the latest HTML version called 5, HTML5. So the new applications will not have this type of frames or frame set. So that has been deprecated in HTML5. So we do have another thing called inner frames. Yeah, we will see that now. So say, for example, this is your web page, right? Within your web page, some other document, web document will be embedded in it. So that's called iframe. That's called iframe, right? So within an iframe, if you have another iframe, then that's called nested iframe, right? So this is your actual main document, right? So this is the main document or main frame, you can say. And within that, you will have the iframe. So iframe is a embedded document within the web page, right? So within that, again, you will be having a iframe. So this type of iframes we call it as a nested iframe. So we have a web page, simple, right? So this part is this part is a web page, right? So that's nothing new to us. So within that, we have an iframe. So iframe is an embedded document, right? Within that, again, you will have a iframe. So inner frame, so the abbreviation of it is iframe, right? So within that, you'll again have a iframe, right? So whenever you wanted to interact with the web elements on the web page, we can directly write the inspect the element and get the look. We'll locate that element. We'll interact it. Nothing new there. But when you wanted to interact with the web elements, which is defined in the iframe, then you have to switch the context to the iframe. So first you will switch the context to the iframe, and then you will interact with the web elements. And again, if you wanted to handle the iframe within the iframe, then you will again switch from here you will switch the context to this inner frame. And then you can interact with this web elements, whatever web elements you have in this iframe. So only thing is you have to switch to the correct iframe. So how do we switch it? We'll see that now. So we have different ways we can actually switch it. We will use the same method switch to again, right? So let's see an example now. Single iframe, right? So it has a single iframe. So this is an iframe and it has a input field. So let's try to inspect this. So if we see here, even selector sub is giving a message info, right? Saying this element is inside same origin iframe, switch inside iframe to access it, right? You have to switch the context. Say for example, we wanted to automate and pass some text into it, right? Say for example, I wanted to pass some text called Selenium in this. So you will understand when we try to automate it. So first let's try to automate it. So I'll say that it has frames demo or frames example, right? I'm navigating to this URL, maximizing the browser window. All right. So this part is done. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to just provide some text into that input box, right? So by dot XPath. Say, for example, I'm taking the relative XPath of this text box. I wanted to provide some text called Selenium into that. Some text, right? So it has to open this URL. It's like a normal input field, right? It's like a normal input field. So it has to enter the text whatever we have provided here, right? Using the sendKeys method. Now let's observe. Let's see. Observe carefully. So what happens? So to see, it maximizes it, and to our surprise, it doesn't enter the text into this text box. And you can even see an exception called no such element exception. And what did we discuss? When you see no such element exception, you might be having a delay loading in the web elements, right? So just to confirm that, what you can do is you can use driver.manage.timeouts.implicit wait. So let's wait for some ideal time of 10 seconds. Now let's see. We're just verifying if, if the input text box is loaded, if it is taking some time to load, and if that might be the cause, right? Definitely it is not with the locator. We got it from the selector sub, and it has to be located right? So, but we got no such element exception. So when we see no such element exception, we have to include the wait tag. This we discussed, and we included the implicit wait, and we have an ample time to load, that is 10 seconds. But still, if you see, we are getting no such element exception. So this is not definitely because of page load, right? So our, page or web element taking long time. So this is not the reason for it. So it has to be a different reason. What's the reason? So the reason behind this is, so if you see here, this is not like a normal web element, right? So it's there within the iframe. So it's there within the iframe. It's defined within the iframe. So you have to switch the context to this iframe first. Only then you can interact with the web element. Only then you can interact with the web element. And how do you actually switch to the iframe? So right click on it, inspect. If you see here, just hover on this iframe. So if you see here, this is what it is pointing to, right? So slowly scroll up, you will see body head HTML. It starts, usually HTML tag, it starts, so the root tag starts with HTML, right? So if you observe, we do have something else again on the top. So we do have HTML. Within that, again, an HTML has been defined. So how do we can do that is, so if you see here, iframe. So there is something called iframe. And if you can collapse that, so this is all it is, right? The iframe. So if you expand this, this is the iframe. So within that web page, we have an iframe. And within that, we have this. See, if I select this, the whole iframe got selected, right? So within that, it is defined. Right? So this is the document. The actual document is this single frame.html, right? So you can even copy this. So single frame.html, right? So let's go to this. I can show you this. What is that? Single frame, right? Single frame.html. So this is the page, right? So this is the actual page. So here, if you do inspect and if you actually find this element, you can interact with this input element as is. So here it will work because it is not there in any iframe, right? See, even you are not getting any warning by selector sub. So you can directly interact with this element. It is straightforward. But this part, this web page, right? Using this, how do you get this web page? By using this URL, right? So this URL has been brought within this document and it was put here, right? So you can see the document also, right? So this is what we call it as embedding. So that document we are embedding in another web page. So that is what we call it as a frame, right? Here, iframe. See, this is iframe. So as that itself is a document, it will have its own HTML language, right? HTML part, right? So HTML tag, everything. So that's the code of this document. This is the actual code or actual, page source of the document, which we have seen just now, right? So that has been embedded into this web page, which we are seeing now here, right? So that is what it is. So how do we handle such frames is, we actually need to switch the context to this iframe. So how do we switch it? So we can switch the context to the iframe in different ways. So driver.switchTo.frame, then we can pass the name, either name, ID, or the web element, or its index, right? So if you have different frames, each frame will be indicated with one index. Again, index starts with 0. Or you can pass the name of the frame. You can pass the ID attribute, right? So like that. If you see this iframe, it has ID. You can pass the ID here. You can pass ID. It has name as well. You can pass the name. Driver.switchTo.frame, and you can pass the name or ID here, right? Likewise, if you you can even pass the index as well. As it has only one iframe, you can just pass the index as 0, right? So this is how you can actually switch the context to the particular frame. Now we'll see how to handle it. Once we switch to the frame, then we can actually interact with the web elements within the frame. The only part is we have to switch it. Switch to dot frame 0. Even we can write 0, or we for the first time, right? We are seeing. So let's actually use name here. So once we are here, we have to click on this single iframe. So it is selected by default, but it's always a good practice to click on this button. So only then this will be open, because we have something else in the beside button, right? So we'll click on this first. So for that, what we can do is, first we'll click on the button called single iframe. So find element by.xpath. We'll click on this button. All right. Now once we click on it, so we have this inner frame. So how do we actually point to this, switch to this iframe? So we can use name here. Name is single frame, right? Name attribute has the value as single frame. So I'm gonna use that. So it has switched the context to that frame. Now you can interact with the element. Interacting the web element is, it is an input field. So we are providing some text into it. Yeah, you can see it clearly provides some string into this input field, right? So this is because we have switched the context to it. We have switched it to the correct iframe, this iframe. Once we switch to the iframe, we can interact with the elements within the iframe, right? So this is how we actually switch it to the iframe. Now, I wanted to click on this button. See, on this button, I wanted to click. After performing this operation, after providing this input into this text field, input field, I wanted to click on this button. So how do we do that? We wanted to first inspect this element, right? So let's inspect this element. And then let's go back. Driver.find element. It's a button, right? So by.xpath, click. So after clicking on that, I wanted to perform some other operation, right? So, but first I wanted to click on the iframe. So click on the button, second button. So we are here, we provided some text into it. Now I wanted to click on this second button, iframe within an iframe. So if you see, it enters the text and it is waiting. It is not able to click on the second button, which is iframe within an iframe. right? And also, yeah, it's a 10 seconds wait time, right? So it is waiting for 10 seconds, implicit wait. And you can say it says no such element exception. So it waits for 10 seconds and it says that it is not available. But you can clearly see that this frame is available here, right? So sorry, this button is available, iframe within an iframe, right? So you can clearly see that it is available and we have located it. And we have provided the correct locator here. But still we are getting that exception. This is because we are in the context of single frame. If you observe, switch to dot frame, single frame, right? So we are into this frame now. Within this frame, we are there. So this frame will not have any clue about the outside web page. So this iframe within an iframe button is outside this iframe. So this will not have the context of that. So we have to switch the context to the main document, right? Or the default document, right? So you have to, how do we switch that? Driver dot switch to dot. There's a method called default content, which actually switches back to the main web page. Now you can click on the button once you do that. Once we use the default content method, switch to dot default content. You have to switch back to the default content. Now see, it enters and it goes back to the default content. Once it switches back to the default content in the sense the main document or the main web page, right? So in which this iframe is present. So once it is back to that, so the web element will be identified. This element was present in the main document, right? So it was able to click on this button. Now we wanted to handle this. So what is this? This is an iframe within an iframe. This we call it as a nested iframe, right? So how do we handle it? So again, so first we have to switch to this first iframe and then the second iframe. So this itself is a first frame, right? So let's actually inspect this. First this frame. See the name of it, the source of it is multiple frames.html, right? So we'll switch to it first. And then if you observe, there is another frame within the iframe. So if you see clearly, the source of it is single frame again, right? So there is one frame which is called as the source of it is multiple frames.html. So we saw that, and within that we have another frame called single frame.html. See, iframe. This is present within another iframe. This iframe. So you have to clearly point this, right? So inspect this iframe first. So slowly see the source of it. It is multiple frames.html. Again, or you can just scroll down here to look for another iframe. Or you can just inspect this inner frame, nested inner frame. So if you point here, so you'll see another iframe here, which is called as a single frame. Within this multiple iframes, we have another inner frame called single iframe. You can see it here, right? So when you hover on this, it is highlighting that nested inner frame, which we can call it as a single frame in this case, right? So how do we switch it? So it's single frame, we know. We can switch to this iframe using its name, then interact with its element. In the same way, like how do you actually interact with the nested iframe? Nested iframe is also simple. You actually switch to this iframe first. And then from here, within that it has the another iframe, right? So from here, you'll actually switch to this iframe, nested iframe, and then you'll start interacting with this element. So let's try this. Let's try to automate it. So now we clicked on the second part, okay, and then we wanted to switch to the, let's call this as outer, and this is an inner. First one, I'll call this as, I'll call this as outer. Right? Once we are into the outer, so from here, we wanted to switch to this inner. I'll call this as inner iframe. The actual names are different, but let's call this as like this, outer iframe. And once we are into the outer iframe, so we wanted to switch to the inner iframe. So we'll call that as an inner, right? So now let's see how to automate it. First, we have to switch to the outer iframes, right? So we have to inspect it, inspect that element. It has something called multiple frames, right? So click on it. And this time we'll use the ready to XPath. Because if you see here, switch to frame can accept name as an attribute, which we have seen, ID also as an attribute. You can try it out. Web element we are trying now, right? Driver dot find element dot by dot XPath. I'm passing a web element to it. So let's capture this web element into a web element object, which we'll call it as outer frame. Now we have the outer frame, right? So how do we switch it? Switch to dot frame. So you can see different methods here, right? So I'm using web element here, outer frame. So you switch to the successfully to the outer frame. So from there, we wanted to switch to the inner frame. So from there, we wanted to switch to the inner frame. So do we need to switch to the default content or not? Here. It's not required, right? So this inner frame is within the outer frame. So we can directly switch it. So for that, we need the XPath of the inner frame. So let's find it out. Y dot XPath. This is the single frame. So select on it. And it gives you a warning. This element is inside same origin iframe is what it is saying. It is saying, be careful, it is an iframe. So this might not work is what it is saying. So we know, we already switched it to the outer iframe. So this should work. So this is the inner frame. Let's capture this into a web element object. I will call this as inner frame. This is our terminology. You can even call this as frame 1 and frame 2 as well. And we wanted to switch the context. Switch to dot frame inner frame. So what did we do here? After clicking on this button iframe, so let's navigate it from the beginning. So we clicked on this button and then we switch to the outer iframe. And from here, we switch to the inner iframe. So here, this is called nested iframes. And within this, we have a web element. Now we can interact with this web element, right? So this web element also has the same related XPath input type equal to text, right? So we had this here. So we can just copy it here. And then we can pass some other string. I'll just say automation, right? Let's execute it. Yeah, you can see we automated 2 frames, right? Single iframe and also the nested iframe. So if you observe, if you go back to single iframe, it actually entered Selenium and then comes out of that. So how do it comes out of that context? So we use the driver.switchTo defaultContent. It comes out of this iframe, then clicks on this and it navigates to the outer iframe. From here, it actually navigated to the switch to the inner iframe. And within that, it has this web element called input field, where it can provide some text into it. Right? So it's all about handling iframes is all about how you switch to the frame. So you need to carefully switch to the right frame in which you wanted to interact with. Like you wanted to interact with some web element which is present in a particular frame. So you need to know how to switch to that frame correctly, right? So it's all about that. And how do you actually identify, how do you find and switch it? So you have different ways. You can pass a name attribute, ID attribute, web element, or if you know the index, right? Say for example, in some cases, like in this case, right? So in this web page, you have like you can clearly see this one iframe. This is 2, this is 3, right? So in that case, you can use the index, but using index is not recommended, right? So it might change, and you have no clue what what iframe it is representing, right? So it's always suggested to go with name, ID, or web element. So 3 main methods, right? Default content, switch to frame. We have anyway saw that. So default content. So default content actually takes you to the main document or main web page. Switches to main page. Is that clear? Understood? So we do have another method called parent content, which actually switches the context to the immediate parent. Switches to its parent frame. This is parent content. Just remember this. So parent content is simple. Say for example, you have multiple nested frames, right? So say for example, this is your web page, and you have one iframe within it. And say for example, you have another iframe, right? Say for example, you have another iframe like this. So in this case, so you are interacting here with some web element, right? So in that case, this web element, right? You wanted to switch the context to the default content. Default content is when you do driver.switchTo the default content, you'll directly come back to this web page directly from here to here. But I wanted to switch the context from here to just its immediate parent, right? So in that case, you can use switch2 dot parent content. It will just switch here. From here, if you can actually use again parent.content, parent.parent content, it will switch here. From here, you can use again parent content, it will switch to its immediate parent. But if you wanted to directly come back to the main web page from wherever you are there in any nested iframe, then you can use the default content. That's the difference between default content and parent content. So any questions? Understood? Hope it is clear. So let me give you some assignments for today. You can go through the recording and also you can practice this assignment. So how to handle the alerts. So if you go to this, so you'll see some alerts. We have seen this alert. So you can go through this. So this is simple alert. This is confirm with 2 buttons. This is a prompt. You can provide some text here, right? So you can try automating this and also practice this. How it has a frame, the second one. You see it has a frame, this frames, right? So this is name, radio buttons, right? So this is within the frame, all this. Whatever is below this frame, right? So this is a frame, different frame, right? So you can see it here. When you inspect it, see, it's an iframe within this document. So try to switch to this iframe and try to interact with these elements. So that will be the assignment for today. So in this session, we have discussed about like multiple parts, checkboxes, radio buttons, how to automate alerts, what are the different types of alerts we have, and how do we handle the frames, inner frames, right? So we can call this as iframes. So whatever we did was like iframes. Inner frame, right? So the document will be embedded within the web page. So This is how you can actually handle the iframes and interact with the web elements within the iframe, right? So once you switch to the iframes, so main methods are switch to frame is the main method, and like the important method which we need to remember, frame, and the we need to pass the name, either name ID or the actual XPath or web element of that frame. And when we wanted to come back to the web page main document, you'll use the default content. This part you need to remember. Everything else is like we already know, nothing new there. So I hope it is clear. If it is clear, then we can wrap up this session.